all about Black Spire Outpost, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. That's this episode of the Go Inform podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 45 of the Go Inform podcast. My name is Maven and I am your hostess here on the show. So happy to have you here with me today to talk about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the new land that has opened at Disneyland and soon to open at Hollywood Studios in Florida. And I am super psyched to talk to you guys today about this. I went to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland about a month ago and have been dying to get this recorded to tell you all about what we saw, what we did, what we drank, all of it. And so I hope that today I can share with you lots of details about the new land and why I think it is one of the coolest theme park lands I have ever experienced. And you guys absolutely need to go and check this out. Show notes today, I am going to have lots of pictures, links to some of the information on the Disney site, and just some other details to kind of fill in the gaps from this show. So that's all going to be over on the website at goinform.net/45. Make sure you check it out. I do have a lot of pictures. I have some video from our time there, and it's a lot to tell you about. And I think some of it's better conveyed through those pictures and stuff. So definitely check out those show notes. So the first thing I want to say is that I was wrong about my crowd predictions and my touring predictions that I made a couple episodes ago when we first got the announced opening dates for Galaxy's Edge. So I warned you guys that it was going to be overwhelmed, like super crowded, and you should stay away. And I was totally wrong, and I'm not the only one. I mean, I think everybody expected that this was going to be so popular and it would just be flooded with people and you'd want to stay away. And the truth is, it's really popular. There are a lot of people there, but Disney has done a fantastic job, at least at Disneyland, keeping the capacity to a level that it's very manageable to go right now in the summer of 2019 and visit Galaxy's Edge without just a mob full of people. Average wait times, there's only one attraction right now, one ride anyway, the Millennium Falcon ride. And I've been watching it, and the wait time is typically around 45 minutes for this ride. And you actually see longer wait times at some of the other rides at Disneyland right now because they're just doing a fantastic job. And I think some of it is that ride is really high capacity. I also think, as you're going to hear me talking about it, that there are just a lot of other things to do too in the land that disperses the people and gives you the chance to see and do a ton of stuff, even when there's a lot of people there. And I also think that as word gets out that it's not super crowded and it's really cool, that there will be more people coming. And so those 45-minute wait times probably are going to edge up over time. So if you have the opportunity to go to California this summer, this early fall, get out there and see this. It's so cool. So our experience with visiting the land was a little bit different than what you're going to have going forward when you visit. And I think, too, the way that Disney handles the crowds and the capacity is probably going to be sort of evolving over time. So I wanted to make sure and get there and see this. So my daughter Luna and I went to Disneyland during the soft opening period for Galaxy's Edge. And this was during June. And the way it worked was that you had to have a reservation to get into the land. They gave you a 4-hour window that you could be there, and then they kick you out. That is not the way it's working now. They have a virtual queue system where if the land is not at capacity, you can just walk in anytime and out, like stay as long as you want, go back in and out all day long, unless it's at maximum capacity. And then they will assign you a time to go into the land later in the day. And it's all done through the My Disney Experience app or the Disneyland app if you're at Disneyland. So this is a big reason why in the show notes, I am going to put some links to the official Disney information about how these lands are operating, because kind of depending on what time of year you're going and how popular it is, you might encounter some different ways that they're controlling the crowds. But right now, you can pretty much just walk in there and hang out all day if you want to. For us, we had a 4-hour window. We picked first thing in the morning because that's our optimum touring time. We wanted to be first into the land before anyone else was in there. And it was so cool. One of the neat things about walking in there first thing in the morning was that, again, they kind of escorted our group in just like any rope drop would be. When we walked into the land, there were stormtroopers patrolling up on top of the rooftops in the section of the land that we walked into. So it just sort of gave this sense that we were going into their fortress kind of, and that they were going to keep an eye on us while we were there. And that is the kind of thing that the kind of level of detail that Disney has put into this that really takes it up another notch. The backstory of the land here at Galaxy's Edge is that this is supposed to be a real place in the Star Wars universe, but not a place that any of us have seen or read about in any of the other Star Wars stories so far. But I'm going to guess that you're going to see it show up somewhere now that they've got these parks to promote. But for now, what it is it's supposed to be an outpost on the edge of the galaxy. And this place that you're at is actually called Black Spire Outpost. And what this is it is a realm where it's kind of a town, and the First Order is there and the Rebels are there, and they kind of each have their own end of this town. And then in between, you have all the kind of scoundrel type people and creatures who are also sort of existing within this system where you've got this sort of uneasy alliance between the Rebels and the First Order to use the space on this outpost. So when you go into the land, depending on which way you enter, you might enter on the First Order end, or you might enter on the Rebel base end. And sort of in the middle is where the Millennium Falcon is parked. And I'll talk about this a little more in a few minutes, but the Millennium Falcon, it is worth going to this land just to see it. It is so amazing. It's like life size right in front of you. Super, super cool, you guys. So the thing is, one of the nice things about this being not just straight out of the movies is that if you're not a big Star Wars fan, you can still enjoy it because you're not going to feel like you're missing a whole bunch of inside, information here. So you are going to see familiar things, familiar to almost anyone who's seen any Star Wars movie. So the Millennium Falcon, Chewbacca, the droids going around, all that kind of stuff. But it is not an exact place that you've seen before. And so this sets it apart from the wizarding world of Harry Potter, where they've really tried to duplicate, like down to the most amazing details, what you saw in the movies. Diagon Alley, it is like they basically took the movie set and made it real. And here at Black Spire Outpost, they have taken inspiration from the movies, and it's like a set from a movie that they never made is really what it feels like. And you are in it. And the cast members are part of the story too. The costuming is so great. I mean, they really do look like they just stepped out of the movies. And if you've talked to them, they actually have backstories about why they are there and how they came there. And you can't really talk to the stormtroopers. They're not going to put up with that. You're going to want to talk to the villagers, and they are happy to tell you more about what their story is and what they think about what's going on in their village. I really can't say enough about the level of detail that Disney has put into this land. You're going to want to look up. You're going to want to look down. On the ground, they have put droid tracks through, just running through the paths. Apparently, they actually took actual models from the droids from the movies and rolled them along there. I believe R2-D2's footprints are there. You're going to see things like blaster marks on the walls of the buildings. And the buildings it's all kind of stone. And so a lot of it looks like it's carved from the rocks that the village is built from. And then you're going to see droids all around. Like there's places where they're just sort of all in a pile. There's cargo boxes. There's full-size spaceships, you guys. There's a TIE fighter that looks like you could just walk right into it. As I said, Millennium Falcon is the real deal right in front of you. X-Wing fighters. You could see land speeders. All of this stuff, it's the scale of it is so perfect. It's like if you could just be let loose into this land, you could go climb into these ships and land speeders and just take off. Another thing that they've done that's different from most Disney parks is that the characters just walk around in Galaxy's Edge. So if you're in the Rebel end of the village, you might see Rey walking around, and it's really fun to watch her because she will often get some other kids. So she'll get some kids to help her, and she'll say, she's hiding from the First Order, or she's got a mission and she needs help. So it's very interactive. We saw Chewbacca walking around. Apparently, he'll go up and do repairs on the Millennium Falcon just in the middle of the day. You can see Kylo Ren with the stormtroopers. We saw the stormtroopers sort of controlling the crowd when a bunch of people came into the land. They were like telling them to move along. We had a really cool encounter with the stormtroopers that I got on video, so I'll put that in the show notes for sure. So the characters and the cast members are really lending this sort of, I want to say human scale, but I guess it's not all humans on this planet, but, it's making it feel very real. Also, another thing that's different, and this is sort of a plus and a minus to a lot of people, but there's no music in the land. Like typically in a theme park, there's music that sets the mood for whatever place you're in. And Disney and Universal both do a great job with this. But what they've done in Black Spire Outpost is instead of music, they have sound effects. So one of the coolest things I thought was that every so often you hear a ship taking off or flying overhead. And I swear the way they did this sound effect, you will look up to see what is flying over. It's like a big jet plane is going across the sky. Somehow they throw the sound over your head and make it sound like it has just flown over you. It's really interesting because it definitely takes you away from like feeling like you're in Disneyland. It really does feel like you have gone to another planet. The way that they have created these rock outcroppings, and it's supposed to be a petrified forest, it really does seem real. They have planted a forest around where the Rise of the Resistance ride's going to be. So there will be trees in this land at some point. Right now, they're very small. So one thing to know, if you're on this planet, wear your sunscreen and bring your fans because it's going to be hot until these trees grow up. And we were there just until noon, and this wasn't even Florida, and we still got a lot of sun and it got hot. So do be aware that that is an issue when you're walking around. They've done a really good job, too, of putting props all around the land, like big cargo boxes and steel doors that are like just into the stone walls. So it really does feel like somebody has left this here, that this is an outpost. There's a lot of things that kind of got left behind or maybe are in transit. And the labels and the writing on almost everything is not in English. It's in whatever the language is of Star Wars. So I know some of you guys are yelling it out right now in your car. I'm not as big a fan as you. So anyway, it's in that language. So that really sets this apart from just, ordinary life. And this brings up something that's a really big component of the land that is in your pocket, and that is your phone. Disney has done a really good job of creating an interactive interface with elements of the land here at Black Spire Outpost. And it is all on the Play Disney app. So make sure before you go that you put the Play Disney app on your phone. It's really your key to unlocking a whole lot of extra stuff when you step into Galaxy's Edge. The app will allow you to translate those words that you're seeing, which is really neat. The cargo boxes will have a code, like a barcode on them. You can scan it with your phone with the app and see what's inside the cargo boxes. When you get onto the Play Disney app and you get into the land, it's going to ask you if you want to choose a side and choose a job. And if you want to, you can actually work for the rebels or work for the First Order or just be a scoundrel. And you can get points, they call them credits, for doing things like scanning a cargo box and stealing it for the rebellion. Or you can open one of those doors and like you do a little puzzle on the app and it'll light up all the lights. You can turn on some of the lights on the spaceships. The TIE Fighter, for example, this full-size TIE Fighter, you can turn on the lights and make it sort of seem like it's going to fly away just from this Play Disney app. So it's really cool. And Luna loved it. I mean, she's definitely of the generation that's she knew just what to do with the app. And so especially for kids, but really for anyone, make sure you have this app on your phone and give it a try. It's just adds this extra element to what you're seeing when you're walking around. And it's a lot like those wands that they have at the Wizarding World where you can do magic. with your wand in the street. That's what the app is like. I really like that things all around us were lighting up and making sounds and whatever, and it wasn't happening on a pre-programmed loop. It was happening because somebody around us was doing that from their phone. So this is a really cool extra dimension, and we're seeing it more and more in these parks. And they just did a fantastic job with it from opening day in Galaxy's Edge. And I think that this is just going to get more and more interactive as the technology improves. And the other thing that's cool with the Play Disney app is that as you're moving through the land, you are earning these credits. You are, establishing yourself as a rebel or maybe First Order. And this allows some of the cast members in the land to interact with you accordingly. So if you have been hacking into all the First Order stuff and you're clearly working for the rebellion, don't be surprised if a stormtrooper comes up to you and says something about it. Or if you meet Kylo Ren, he might really say something about it. And this is just the Disneyland version where we don't have magic bands there. So in Florida at Disney World, with having your magic band, I think that eventually they will have this all connected through your magic band. And then you can just walk into a place and they might know who you are, who you're working for. And, that might be good or bad, depending on what part of the land you're in. And when you ride the Millennium Falcon ride, depending on how you do with your mission, that also is going to play into your reputation in the land. So the Parks app is really, really cool. One thing you need to know is that the Parks app takes a lot of your battery because it is constantly searching for your location, and I'm probably a whole bunch of other reasons, but for us, it drained our batteries like crazy. Now, I know Disney is working on improving this, and hopefully by the time you listen to this, it won't be an issue at all. But for us, we really wish that we had an external battery for our phones, because by the time our 4 hours was up, our batteries were virtually dead. So do make sure you've got some kind of backup power for your phone so you can really use this thing to the max and not worry about your battery going dead. I know that's been a big issue. Disney's aware of it, and hopefully they're fixing it. But it's always good to be cautious. So bring an external battery pack, and then you shouldn't have any trouble at all. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the land and what you're going to see just in general. There are a ton of attractions to see in Galaxy's Edge. And I don't just mean the rides. There are cool places to eat and shop, and just some really interesting things to do and see. So the first thing I want to tell you guys about is the Cantina. This is a must-see, in my opinion. I think it was really my favorite thing of the whole land, and I kind of liked everything. But the Cantina, when you go in there, it is like you stepped into the first Star Wars movie. And for people of my generation, that movie, we all remember where we were when we first saw it, and that Cantina scene was so mind-blowing. To be able to walk into the Cantina and sit there and order a drink was so cool. It's basically just drinks in there, but they have both alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks. Kids can be in there. It's no issues there. Luna and we went there first, so it was like 8 a.m. So we had tea. We had a really interesting tea drink, and we had a drink that was based on the blue milk, and both were really good, actually quite refreshing. Our neighbors, who were older than Luna and obviously didn't weren't worried about the rest of their day, actually ordered some of the other drinks, and it was fun to see them. They were very cool. The drinks are weird colors. Some of them have like foam on the top. Some of them are like smoking, like dry ice. So make the most of the menu. We tried to order, we ordered 2 different things. The group next to us was 4 people, so they all ordered different stuff. Definitely check it out and order something off the menu and try it. The way that they were controlling the crowd when we were there was that it was, you could go in there for 45 minutes. You could order only 2 drinks per person. And when they took our order, they took our credit card, so they didn't have to circle back to, finalize the bill. So they definitely were trying to keep people moving. And I have a feeling that it's going to stay like that, because one of the most charming things about the cantina is its size. It's not very big. It really does feel like the size you would imagine the cantina was in the movie, or even a little smaller. So they want to keep people moving. There are only a few actual sit-down tables. There's a lot of stand-up kind of bar space. There's space around the actual bar, which if you can sit there, that's super cool. Behind the bar, there's like weird creatures in cases, and the actual like beer taps are super wild, and it's very kind of steampunk, and there's a ton of stuff to look at. So sitting at the bar would be really cool. We were at kind of a stand-up table around the center of the room, and that was nice because you could kind of just move around and look all directions. There is a droid DJ that plays the music in the cantina, including the cantina song that everybody knows. And it's dimly lit. There's like blaster marks on the walls. The door to the cantina slides open and closed just like you would expect, which has a really interesting effect, because when people come in or out, it's for us, it was really bright sun outside, but dark in there. And so every time the door opened, you kind of saw the light from outside, and then it would slide closed, and it just felt like we were really somewhere special. They are currently doing a reservation system for the cantina, which again, I think may evolve, but I expect that you're always going to need a reservation to get into this place. And so do be sure to do your homework before you go to find out how to get that reservation. Right now at Disneyland, anyway, you have to do it the day of, like starting at 7 in the morning or something, you can grab a reservation. So make sure you know how to do that, because I really, really think it's worth spending the time to see the cantina. The shopping in the land is an attraction too. So there are a few different shops that are really special. One of them is called the Droid Depot, and that's where you can build your own droid. So it's like a miniature version of R2-D2 basically, and it's a remote controlled droid. I heard that if you build 2 droids, they'll actually talk to each other. You go in there, it's like an assembly line, and pick up the parts, and then they help you put it together. The Droid Depot is also a store, so you can get some cool, just some neat Star Wars stuff in there. So anybody can walk in there and check it out. There's also a workshop where you can build a lightsaber that people who are really into this have been raving about. I mean, this is like an incredible experience from what I understand. It's not cheap, and it's really hard to get in there. I believe you also need a reservation to do this. So again, do your homework, find out beforehand. It is supposed to be a really cool experience. And then you get this really nice lightsaber. We saw people carrying them around and they looked really neat. The thing about the lightsaber workshop is that you can't go in there unless you have, unless you're building a lightsaber. So you're not going to be able to see it unless you're actually doing that. So we did not see that because we did the cantina with our time instead. Something else too about the shopping in the land, it's a lot like in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, where you're not going to find like theme park branded merchandise. So here in Galaxy's Edge, there's tons of Star Wars stuff. I mean, it's really cool. Like, I bought a book of postcards that were postcards from all the different Star Wars planets that looked like they were, you know, in-world kind of stuff. And that's what you're going to find. You are not going to find anything with Mickey Mouse. No Disney logos here, and actually nothing that says Star Wars either. You can find a few things that say Galaxy's Edge, but most of it is just supposed to be from that place. And so a lot, like if you're in the shops in Diagon Alley where you could get wizarding robes and that kind of stuff, here you can get your Jedi robes, and you can get stuffed animals that are like creatures like tauntauns, and wooden carved in souvenirs and stuff like that. So there's a place called the Marketplace, which is really quite small. It's like an open air marketplace, like in Morocco, and it's really well done. Very, very cool decor here, hanging lanterns, and it's like it's built into the stone. And each of the little stalls in the marketplace sells different stuff, and so this is really cool. And again, I just keep going back to the Wizarding World because all of these things just enhance the experience to make you feel like you're in the place. And the marketplace really does feel like this is what a marketplace would be in this village way out on the edge of the galaxy. There's another shop called the Den of Antiquities that has all kinds of cool Star Wars merch, and then also like on the walls, really weird things that the owner of the shop has collected over the years. Don't miss that store either. And another thing that you shouldn't miss, which might be easy to miss right now while Rise of the Resistance is not operating, but down at that end of the land is the Rebel Outpost. And the Rebels have, all that they have are some kiosks set up with their merchandise. So that's where you can get your Rebellion. You can get a helmet, like a TIE Fighter helmet there, and some other cool stuff that's related to the Rebellion. That's where you're probably going to see Rey, and also there's some cool spaceships and stuff down there. So make sure that you go all the way through the land. Even if you think you've seen it all, this place is really big. I mean, the size of it, I think it's bigger than Hogsmeade Village. It's maybe as big as if you took Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade Village and combined them together. So it's a lot of space, and there's a lot of nooks and crannies. I mean, it's kind of like if Epcot had a Star Wars pavilion. This is what it would be like. So do make sure, if you can have the time to do it, take the time to go, just keep going down that path or whatever and see what's at the end, because there's a lot of cool stuff to see. And there's also food in the land. Now, we went to the cantina and had our refreshments, but we didn't actually eat any of the food. So I don't have a review for you about the food. I can tell you, though, there's quite a few different options. There are places to sit in the shade and eat. And also you can just kind of sit and people watch, which is fun. Definitely try the blue milk. I thought it was really good. I heard the green milk isn't, so maybe stay away from that. You can mobile order at the food, except at the cantina, but at any of the other food places, you can mobile order your food so you can skip the line. So make sure you have everything set up in your Disney app so that you're ready to go for that. And so if you're there during a mealtime, give it a try and let me know how it is, you guys. Tag me on Instagram or something and tell me what you thought about the food. Okay, so I haven't even talked about the rides, and we're like a half an hour in here. So you can tell that, like, my opinion, and this is something I've heard from others, is that this land is about way more than just a couple of rides. Like, it really is immersive, and you want to plan to spend some time walking around and checking out all the other stuff here. And I do think that this is part of the reason why the ride wait time has been pretty low for the Millennium Falcon ride, is because people are doing so much else when they're in the land as well. But let me tell you about the Millennium Falcon ride. I'm not going to talk about Rise of the Resistance because I haven't ridden it. It's not open yet. It is going to open in Disney World on December 5th, 2019, and then it's going to open in Disneyland on January 17th, 2020. So if you guys are going to be traveling after that point, then that ride will be open as well. And I'm dying to get down there and try it out, but it probably be a little while after it opens before I can test it, but I will be very happy to do another recording to tell you guys about that ride at that time. I did talk a little bit about it a couple episodes ago on my first episode about Galaxy's Edge, so if you're curious, you can go back and listen to that and find out what that's all about. But I can tell you about the Millennium Falcon ride, which was really cool. I mean, we had high expectations for that ride, and I would say that they were met. The thing that really surprised me was how well they did the queue. You know, this is a ride that they expect big crowds for, and so they did a really good job of making the waiting area, the queue, the pre-show, all of it just almost as entertaining as the ride itself. When you go into the Millennium Falcon ride, you're going to be kind of walking through the workshop, or kind of where they work on the ships, basically, for this guy whose name is Hondo. This guy named Hondo, okay? And so you're going to see a lot of cool stuff right in the queue. And by the way, with the Play Disney app, there's a lot of interactive stuff while you're in this queue that you can be doing on the app too, to kind of pass the time. So one of the neatest things about the queue is that there's a couple of times that you're walking through that you get to see there's these big windows out over the top of the Millennium Falcon. And it is so amazing that it looks like they just took the model and they blew it up to full scale. I mean, it's got all these like pipes and wires and all this stuff, all this detail on it. And while you actually don't want the line to move at first, because you really just want to stand there and look at the Millennium Falcon. So make sure you have your camera ready, because there's going to be a few points while you're waiting in this line that you are for sure going to want to take some pictures. Once you get into kind of the shop where they're working on this big engine, one of the things that we noticed was that there were interactive things in there, including the engine. Like, somehow somebody could turn that thing on and make noise. So a lot of stuff is happening in that part of the queue as well. And you're kind of getting a sense of where you are and who this Hondo guy is and what's happening here. when you get to the top of the ramp of the queue line, that's when you're going to meet Hondo himself. This is an audio animatronic figure that tells you about your mission with the Millennium Falcon. And I swear it looks like it is a real guy up there. Like, it is amazing, the technology that went into this figure. So take a look at that. Like, you could watch him all day, I think, and still feel like you're looking at a real person. So that's really cool. But then that's only the beginning, because once he's done telling you what he wants to tell you, that's when you walk down a hall and you're going to walk into the Millennium Falcon. The part of the Falcon that you're going to walk into is sort of the open lounge area that is so familiar to any Star Wars fan as the place where Chewie hangs out and plays chess, and everybody goes when they're not flying and not up in the cockpit. And it is super cool. They make sure that you have a little bit of time in there. It's only like you and like maybe a dozen people in there at any one time. So you can really take a minute and explore. You can sit at the table and get your picture with the chess table there. You can walk around and see what else is in this room. It's really neat. And when you're in the room, that is when the cast members are going to split you up into your group to fly in the Falcon. So in the cockpit of the Falcon, there are 6 seats, and everybody has a job. And you really do. Like, this is a ride that you actually need to be doing something while you're riding it, that it's going to affect the outcome of the ride and the kind of ride you're going to have. The positions in the cockpit, there's 2 pilots, there's 2 engineers, and there's 2 gunners. And when you get in there and you sit down, just take a minute and remember the view looking into the cockpit, looking into the face of Han Solo and Chewie, with Luke and Leia behind them, and C-3PO behind that. That is you. You are sitting there. The people in the front are the pilots. Then you have the gunners, and then you have the engineers. And you will be assigned a spot by the cast member before you walk in. So they're going to get you in a group of 6, and they're going to hand you some cards just kind of upside down, and that's your position. They don't care if you switch with your friends. Just figure it out before you get into the cockpit. So if you really want to be the pilot and your friend wants to be gunner and you want to switch with them, you can do that. We rode it twice, and we were gunners. We were each a gunner once and each a engineer once. Neither of us were a pilot. Pilot has a lot of pressure, you guys, so maybe don't put somebody who's gonna not handle the pressure very well in the pilot seat, and also maybe don't put the 5-year-old there. And if you want to be pilot, then the seat you want to be in, well, if you're looking out of the cockpit, that you want to be on the right side pilot seat, because that is the person who gets to put the Millennium Falcon into hyperspace. You literally pull the lever back and go into hyperspace, you guys. It's so cool. If you are an engineer or a gunner, there's buttons on the side on the panels next to you, and you're basically going to be pushing buttons the whole time, which worked fine for me because that was fairly easy. And you have a mission, and you're supposed to be chasing this thing and shooting at it and flying the Millennium Falcon, and Hondo is giving you instructions. It's really entertaining. It's kind of like if you took Star Tours and you just went in the Millennium Falcon with that. We thought it was really fun. You could definitely ride it more than once and switch positions. And it was really, really entertaining. And the other thing is that this plays into the Play Disney app because the app is going to notice how you did on your mission. So if you succeeded, you will get extra credits. And if you failed, I don't know, that's noted too. So make sure you have the app on when you're in there. I think if you're at Disney World and you've got your Magic Band, you may not have to have your phone going the whole time. The Magic Band might keep track of this. But anyway, it does play into your role in the land. You can also ride single on the Millennium Falcon ride, and we had a single rider on the second time that we went through, and she said she walked right onto the ride with no wait. So riding single, because it's a 6 people in the cockpit at any time, it's kind of a weird number. So I think they're going to use single riders pretty frequently to fill in the cockpits. So if you don't mind going with someone else, riding single is a really good way to skip the line on this ride. And if you want to know more about riding single, I have an episode a few back in the archives all about that, and tell you what that is and what that's like and why you should try it. Right now, there's no fast passes for the Millennium Falcon ride, and I think it's going to stay that way for a while. But eventually, there will be fast pass for this as well. So that kind of gets into touring tips for Galaxy's Edge. I don't know what it's going to look like when Disney World's Galaxy's Edge opens up. It could be a totally different scenario. It might be way more crowded than what we're having at Disneyland. So some of this is just totally speculation, but there's some basic tips that always work, which, number one, getting to the land first. So being there early in the day is going to make a difference. At Disney World this fall, this is crazy, but they're actually going to have 6 a.m. extra magic hours for Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios. So if you can do it, I just have to think that you're gonna have a lot of the place to yourself if you go there at 6 a.m. in Florida. So that is one way to avoid the crowds. If you want some tips about how in the heck to do that, that's my episode 19, Master Your Theme Park Morning, that you guys hear me talk about practically every episode. You're going to need every trick in the book, I think, especially if you're coming from somewhere west, to be at the park and actually get on the rides at 6 a.m. But you guys can do it. I know it. If you're on the West Coast, though, really consider going to Disneyland right now. Like, seriously, you guys, make a reservation and go next week. 45 minutes to ride the Millennium Falcon. That's awesome. The land has not used that virtual queue hardly at all. Like, basically every time I check, you can walk right into the land. So if you can get to Disneyland right now before Rise of the Resistance opens, because I do think that's going to add to the crowds, and before word gets out, this is a time to go. And now I'm thinking maybe the same's going to be true for Disney World. I think a lot of people are worried about the crowds. They don't realize that it isn't that crowded. And this may be a golden opportunity to go and see it before it gets really crazy. So, and the Rise of the Resistance ride is going to be amazing and worth the wait. But if you travel to the theme parks fairly frequently, like every couple of years or something like that, I would say go now. You can see like everything else in the land, and then go back in another year or whatever, and then get your chance to ride Rise of the Resistance. Don't let the fact that you're not a big Star Wars fan stop you from going into the land too. Or if you have someone with you who's like, I don't know, I'm not really into it. It is really neat. It's really cool to see it. everybody at least knows who Chewbacca is and the stormtroopers, and they're gonna recognize the Millennium Falcon. So there's a lot to like about this land, even if you're not a fan. If you are a fan, you have to go. Like, it's just like for us, kind of a pilgrimage going to Diagon Alley. Like, this is really, really cool for you if you're a Star Wars fan. And do think about doing the lightsaber experience. Throw the money at it, because the people I've heard who are big fans, they are talking about tearing up when they got their lightsaber. A really good description of this is on Lou Mongello's WDW radio podcast. He did an episode about a month ago about going to Galaxy's Edge. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, and it's really great to hear him and his traveling companions talk about going to build these lightsabers. So if you're a fan, go. If you're not a fan, go into the land anyway. Have a good time. Another tip, we weren't able to do this when we went because of our restrictions, but now you can go in and out of the land as whenever you want. I would highly recommend checking it out in the daytime and at night. The pictures I've seen of it at night, it looks like really different at night, and they've done a great job with lighting, and I'm sure the sound effects are a little different. It's probably a lot like visiting Pandora in Animal Kingdom, where daytime has a totally different feel than night. I also think like going to the cantina in the evening and maybe having an adult beverage instead of tea would be pretty cool. So think about how you can see it maybe more than once at different times of the day. And I'm sure I've forgotten something, probably a bunch of stuff from my experience there. If you guys have any questions about this, just reach out to me. The easiest way is just to direct message me on social, on Instagram or Facebook. I'm at GoInformNet and both of those places, and happy to hear from you guys and answer questions and expand on anything over there. Also, just a quick request. If you have a minute to leave a review for the show wherever you are listening to it, that is so appreciated. I know I'm not podcasting super often, so maybe that's why, but it has been a while since I've seen any iTunes reviews, especially. And I love it when you guys do that. It's so nice, and I just so appreciate it. So if you have a minute to do that, that would be awesome. I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks for coming to Galaxy's Edge with me today, you guys. I hope that I have convinced you that you really need to check it out. And I hope that you have a mind-blowing vacation.